I did not grow up with a dream university. My dreams changed every week based on whatever YouTube vlogs I was watching or whatever country looked nice to live in. So from the ages of 14 to 17, my dream universities included UBC, McGill, NUS, UVA, USC, Duke, Yale, Harvard, UCLA, SSE, Exeter, King's, LSE, Oxford, and where I ended up, Warwick. Hello, it's been so long since I filmed a video like this. I've actually missed it a lot. But I decided I really need to start getting back into my IB videos because I feel like those are the most popular. So I'm thinking of doing a little university application series, mainly oriented at the UK and at IB students, but most of the advice is going to be pretty general and can probably apply regardless. I have my Notion page right behind my phone, so if I keep looking up, then that's why. But yeah, so first video at least, I'm gonna talk about how to find your dream university, how to figure out the one, how to set your goal. It can be nice to have a dream university. Obviously, you don't need one specific place where you really want to go to, and it's good to have a few different options, but it can be nice motivation just to have like one course or one university that you're dreaming of going to, and it's a nice motivation during exams. So obviously your dream will change a lot, as mine did, but I sort of settled on Warwick around the end of DP1, so I know a lot of people that already decided where they wanted to go way before that or way after that, so it's completely fine. But yeah, first of all, starting with the basics, so just to sort of narrow down what kind of university goals you have, a good place to start is what country or city you want to move to. So how far away from home you're willing to go, how much money you want to spend, because obviously studying abroad can be very expensive. If you want to just move away from home and get that kind of experience of independence, then even moving to another city is a good option. So I would say that's a good place to start. If you're going to an IB school, that probably means that people are going to all kinds of countries, seeing as it would be an international school, I would assume. Really just keeping your options open, I think, is a good choice. I had 3 different countries, so I had Sweden, Netherlands, and the UK. So good range of choice, different price points as well, but yes. Next, if you don't already know, then it's probably good to start thinking about the course you want to apply to. Depending on the course as well, like some universities specialize in certain subjects, so LSE for economics, for instance, Imperial for STEM, stuff like that. As an IB subject, this is probably already kind of reflected by the subjects that you took at HL, so I had English, math, and economics. So I went for like a pretty generic combination, I guess you could say, so that I could apply to more or less anything, but obviously economics is what I chose to apply to. So the reason the HL subjects matter is because in the UK, for instance, they would equate your HL subjects to A levels, so those would be reflected in the entry requirements. If you're not sure about what to study yet and you are already in DP2 or you feel like it's getting, a bit close to your application deadline, then a good standard option to go for is like business or economics. Obviously depends a lot on your interests and your goals, but these degrees are very common because they're very versatile. You can go into like pretty much any field you want afterwards. They usually don't have certain subject requirements, so you can take any subject and still get into these. I know for economics, at like some very top universities, they do require HL math, but apart from that, for the most part, you don't really need to have any specific subjects studied. Comparing that to other subjects like if you want to study a sciencey field, you might need biology or chemistry. If you want to go into engineering, you would need physics, possibly also chemistry, and like HL math. Stuff like that. You don't need to know exactly what you want to do in the future because realistically no one really does, but even just a general idea of the kinds of things you're interested in, what you value as well, whether that's a course you enjoy, a course that's versatile, a course that will earn you like a high paying job, all of which are valid reasons, but just think about what your personal goals are as well. I will say going to university is an investment, especially if you're going somewhere where you actually need to pay a good amount. So do think about the return you're getting on that investment when you're choosing your degree as well. Personal tip, do look at joint degrees if you're indecisive like myself. I applied to, I think, almost entirely just joint degrees, mostly economics with management or economics with psychology, or the course that I'm doing now, which is economics, psychology, and philosophy. This allows you to stay a bit broad, so if you're not yet completely sure, you still like have a bit of options, but these degrees are also usually very flexible, so you can specialize and sort of go into one or two of the fields. It might be a bit harder to write your personal statement if you're applying to like a lot of different joint degrees like I did, whereas if you're applying to just one thing like PPE at 5 different universities, then you should be fine. And then depending on how far you are in the process or like how early you're looking, you might want to look at some entry requirements as well. Obviously, the later it is, the more you're gonna have to think about these like practical matters as well, whereas if you're still in like 10th grade, even 11th grade, you can kind of just dream whatever you want. But yeah, that's definitely also a factor that is important to a lot of people, the actual rankings. So you can compare a few different lists. Do keep in mind that these like university rankings are often very subjective, and you kind of have to consider what goes into the score as well. But in general, you should see like the same 10-15 universities consistently ranking on the top, so those can be a good place to aim for if you feel like that's something you are interested in. Okay, so by this point you should have a pretty general idea of what kind of direction you want to go in, what country, what course, so that should have narrowed it down a decent amount. Next is finding the actual universities. So something I struggled with a lot is I didn't know what was out there because I didn't really know anyone personally that was at university, at least no one who I was super close with. So what I did a lot was watching a lot of university vlogs and YouTube videos on the matter. I feel like this is such a big thing to get insight into how university life actually is. There's certain things that you can only tell through these vlogs that you can't just by looking at the website. So like the overall atmosphere, how much workload they have, how the accommodation is, how the city is, things like that. I really want to do some of these for Warwick too, hopefully next term, because I know there's not many Warwick vlogs out there, at least from what I saw when I was applying. These are a good starting point. Of course, don't be too influenced by them because it is only one person's experience and that's maybe not fully reflective of the university itself, so make sure to do like a wide range of research as well. Some other places you can go on are UCAS, so they have like the search feature there. Bridge U is a common one. I was advised to use this by my school, but I think it's mainly geared towards US universities. Also Discover Unis. Other platforms like this where you can just find databases of like all of the universities that are out there. Talking to past students, that's a big one. Having connections anywhere is really helpful. So if you have family or friends or even just like older students from your school, like if you're in contact with them, on LinkedIn, if you're into that kind of thing, you can reach out to people that are going to the university that you want to go to, or even just speaking to your school counselor on what universities people have gone to in the past. I would say when you're looking for universities, try to find a good balance of reaches, targets, and safeties. So I would say like don't be afraid to aim high, because what I did is I was very scared of getting rejected from all of my universities. So I applied to like ones that weren't too competitive. So even if the universities themselves were good, the courses I applied to had pretty high offer rates. But I would really say just go for it. Like, don't be afraid to aim high. Of course, you do have to be realistic and make sure you do have backup options, because it can be hard to be in a situation where you only have one option to choose from. So what I kind of roughly did was the UK ones were like my good ones that I really wanted to go to, and then Netherlands and Sweden had much more relaxed application processes and lower requirements, so those were kind of like my backups. If I could go back, what I would change is applying to better universities in the UK. So I had backups within my UK options like Strathclyde, and looking back now, like even if I had gotten in there, I wouldn't have gone there. So make sure all of them are ones that you would actually want to go to. By now you should have a good list of different university options. If you still feel like you don't really know, then I would go on like some sort of ranking website for whatever country you're aiming for and take like the top maybe 10-15 universities, or you can go a bit lower down if those are very competitive, if it's somewhere like the US, and just watch YouTube vlogs from each university and just see how the overall vibe is if you like the university, and try to find someone that's also attending there that you can speak to. Lastly, narrowing it down, because you obviously can't apply to every single university that you want to. If you're in the UK, you'd have to limit that down to 5. Other countries are a bit more generous. I know in the US it's common to apply to like 15-20 universities, so depends on where you're looking at. My biggest tip is visit the universities in person if you can. If they're located in your country or like close to where you live, then of course that should be pretty easy. But otherwise, if you're traveling at any point during the school year, so like I normally travel with my family in December and then once in like springtime-ish, so I basically just asked my parents to go to the Netherlands in December and then go to the UK in spring so I could visit my 2 university countries and see the universities there. This is like such a huge factor, like I cannot emphasize this enough, but when you see it in person, you will get such a feel for the actual atmosphere of the university that you cannot get online. Obviously, visiting on open days is ideal, but what I found with a lot of universities is that they put their open days during school time or like school days, or they would be like on a Friday, so it wasn't possible for me to obviously travel during that time. But even if it's not an open day and you're just going to look at the university, I still think that's worth it. That's what I did in both the UK and the Netherlands. Having someone with you can be super helpful. So in the Netherlands, I had one of my family members studying there who helped sort of guide me around and just help me analyze the different universities. In the UK, I had one of my old classmates who sort of gave me a little tour. So just finding people to take you around is really helpful, and also get insight from a person that actually studies in that country or in that university. At some of them, you can book like a student ambassador to sort of guide you around as well, so that's another option. But make sure you do this well enough in advance, because I know at Warwick there was an option to book someone who's studying your course, but I saw this the day before I was supposed to go there, and you needed to give them like 2 weeks notice, so keep that in mind. If you can't visit them for whatever reason, then online like virtual campus tours are also a good idea. Again, through YouTube, great resource. Otherwise, some of them have like virtual tours made by the university. So Warwick has this like 360-degree virtual tour where you can basically go around the different buildings, the accommodations and everything, which is a great alternative. Of course, it's not exactly the same as going in person, but it's still good option. Lastly, to really narrow it down to your top like 2-3 dream universities, there's a few other factors that I think are really important outside of just the academics and the course and the ranking. A big one that I always tell anyone is whether it's a campus or city university. So honestly, this makes such a huge difference to your daily life, because out of everywhere I looked into, I went to both city and campus universities. So for city universities like King's College London or University of Amsterdam, the campus is basically located right in the heart of the city. So it is very busy, especially at King's being in the center of London. It's very much alive. It's a very like energetic atmosphere is how I felt, at least coming from a much smaller city, which can be nice for your experience just because it feels, you know, more exciting. But I think it's also like I can see myself getting quite exhausted in that kind of environment, and also safety wise, like living right in the city can be a bit dangerous, especially if it's your first time moving out, as is the case for most university students compared to a campus university. So I would say Erasmus University in Rotterdam, that was kind of like a campus university, so it's located a little bit away from the city center. Warwick in particular, I'm going to keep referencing Warwick just because I go there, but Warwick being a campus university I think is honestly so great, because even if it's not right in the heart of a city, so you don't get that like city experience, it's still very safe, which I feel like is a huge thing. So I've walked back home by myself at like 3 a.m. and it's been completely fine. Also, everywhere you go there's just university students, so if you need to ask someone for help or directions, then you know for a fact that they're safe. Everyone on campus is either like a university student or staff for the most part, apart from a few visitors to like the art center or the gym, but also with the accommodation all being on campus, so like you live close to your friends compared to like maybe living a bit more scattered out through the city. You also don't have as much of a commute to get to class, but of course it is a matter of personal preference depending on what you like and what you're looking for. I would also look at the environment of the university, so whether it has a reputation of being like very social and like a party school, or if it's very academic, a lot of focus on like getting internships and jobs, things like that, or if you're just looking for a balance, which I think is what most people are. The sort of reputation of university is usually very subjective, so I would say the only real way to get a feel for it is if you talk to students that are going there, or if you like watch videos. Again, same thing. And then lastly, of course, just as a practical matter, you'll want to look into the entry requirements and see whether they have requirements for your total point score, or if you need like a certain grade in a certain subject. If you need any additional tests, there's stuff like, I think the TSA for Oxford and like the SAT, or like a certain, like an English exam if English isn't your first language, things like that. Make sure that you set aside enough time to register and study for and take those. But yeah, once you've looked at the entry requirements, you should have an idea maybe where your focus should go to. So if there's like a point total, then maybe working on your weaker subjects to get to that number. Or if it's a certain subject, then you know you should study more for that subject to reach the requirement. By now, you should have a good number of universities to apply to. Like I said earlier, the exact number depends on where you're going. Make sure that you're happy with each of the universities, but also know that you don't need like a perfect list, because in the end, like, you're only going to one university. So for me with UCAS, like, I struggled to find enough options rather than narrowing it down. It was just, I couldn't find enough courses that I liked. So I kind of had a few random ones in there. But ultimately, like, you are going to one, and if that one has a pretty solid offer rate, then you don't really need to be worrying too much. I'm hoping to do a few more like work specific videos, or like just IB advice videos, kind of corresponding to like what IB students are currently doing. So I'm pretty sure around this time last year I was like just about done with my EE and like about to start working on my IAs, so maybe a few IA advice videos next. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, then comment them down below, and make sure to subscribe. Bye bye. I don't know what I usually say at the end.